So I just got fired from my job at Joann's, and honestly, I'm kind of relieved. Okay, hold up. Back it up. I wasn't actually fired. I was laid off because the whole company kind of went bankrupt, and then we liquidated. So the true title should actually be I worked a liquidation at Joann's. So I will be explaining my little experience. I've tried to record this video multiple times, and there is like a constant change in the Joann situation. I thought that, after May 31st was up, I thought I wouldn't have to think about Joann's, at least for a while. Like, the fact that we finally closed, everything's done. No, tell me why, like, 2 days ago, Michael's just bought, like, a lot of Joann's private labels, or not private labels, but their, some of their products that they hold. Anyways. So the situation kept changing over the course of me trying to rant about losing my job at Joann's, but this is it. It's currently June 8th, so I am done with Joann's completely. If you are completely out of the loop and you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, the legendary icon, Queen Joann, has closed down. Rest in peace, Queen. You were a problematic queen, but we still appreciated you. Anyways, I worked there for 3 years there, and I decided to work there to the end because this was like my first job ever that I had gotten in college. It got me through college and I graduated last year, but I stuck with it and I stuck with the team. I really liked all the people that I worked with there. So I decided, okay, that's it. I'll stick through it just for a little bit longer. The people that I worked with made it bearable. Joann's actually filed for bankruptcy twice. They originally filed for bankruptcy last year in March 2024, and then they filed again in January of 2025. They kind of weren't doing so well. They were kind of like, $500,000 in debt. When they initially filed for bankruptcy, I honestly wasn't surprised because our store, we had a big store, but they were very slow at restocking things. There was writing on the wall that Joann's probably wasn't gonna survive in the long run because of just how the economy is and how physical stores are failing and all that fun stuff. But anyways, the first bankruptcy was actually done very quick. They got out of bankruptcy because they got bought out by private equity. Private equity is kind of icky. Basically, private equity firms make their money by buying companies, and their goal is to transform the company into profit. And as you see, the private equity firm did not help Joann at all. And actually, private equity is behind 70% of the large US bankruptcy in the first quarter of 2025. I'll just put up this table from this article. I'll link it below. Here are some major companies that went bankrupt this year. Only this year. And also on a side note, Michael's was owned by its own little private equity firm called Apollo Global Management. So, not sure how Michael's will end up later down the line, but I guess we'll see in a couple of years. To the general public, private equity does not have a good reputation for a reason. Anyways, in a month with the whole private equity firm, they actually managed to supposedly reduce their debt. Clearly not very well, though. But I thought it was weird how quickly they got out of bankruptcy. And I was always just skeptical of the company itself since it wasn't really the best to its employees. We were very low with getting stock in the store. Like, for instance, we didn't get like the essential like trim and like hot glue and stuff. We didn't get enough stock of that. A lot of the stuff that people really needed, we weren't getting anything in really. So it was very slow. So I definitely knew something was up. But like, you know, the higher ups, they reassured us like everything's gonna be fine. Not to mention they also got rid of full-time key holders at my store after the first bankruptcy. They ended up hiring new key holders, but they paid them way lower than me, which I was just a regular team member, by the way, which is crazy to me. We had a lot of disgruntled employees, and I completely understand because we had to deal with a lot of annoying people. So they hired the new key holders. They've been hiring a couple of new people, and then the hours really started dwindling. Like, I didn't work a lot. I was part-time, but the hours were very sparse. And then they implemented a new thing where if we clocked in like just maybe like 5 minutes early, we would have to get a manager's permission for us to clock us in. So they were really counting the hours, making sure that they could pay us the least amount because they were still in debt. And another weird thing about the first bankruptcy is they didn't close any stores at all. Very weird, very strange. I really thought it was weird. Something was up. But I stayed optimistic. Like, toward, I believe, the end of 2024, we started getting a bunch of new things. Like, the Fabinet brand was, like, the Joann brand, name brand of, like, notions and stuff. Like, we got a bunch of needles. We got a bunch of new interfacing and a lot of stuff that people can use. So it was like things were like actually looking up. That was the beginning of the end, truly. Boom. January 15th, 2025 had hit. Joann had yet again filed for bankruptcy. And yet again, I was not surprised. Joann was in quite a lot of debt. Poor girl, get your stuff together. And I had a feeling with the second bankruptcy, I wasn't as hopeful this time around. I don't think we were gonna get out of this one. And then I believe it was February 12th, it was announced that only 500 of the 800 stores were closing. I think like a couple days later after they announced the store closures, we found out we were on that list, and that really just like, that really made me mad. I actually enjoyed working there, at least somewhat. Like, it is retail, but I like the people I worked with, so it just kind of sucks to not like be in that environment every day, being around people that you can just like, you know, you get along with, because I find that it's hard to find people you work good with. Yeah, it just made me really angry, I guess. Initially, we weren't allowed to tell the customers because I don't think it was public knowledge at first. But then a couple days later, we did. But it was like hard those first couple of days. I just had to act like everything's normal. It just sucks working at a job that you enjoyed, knowing that you're about to lose your job. And then after the initial, like, of them saying 500 stores would close, they then announced that every store would be closing.
Psych! That's the wrong number!
And then they stopped doing online orders. They cut that stuff off because people were panic buying. And then I believe it was like the court ruling that May 31st was like the final day for every Joann store to be like closed. And it just sucked. On February 14th, I believe we started the liquidation sales, or maybe it was the next day. I can't remember. It was so weird because Joann was like notorious for its sales. Like, there was always a sale going on fabric. Like, it was always like, you know, a 30% off of cotton and like 50% off of like the holiday cotton and all that kind of good stuff. The liquidation sales were actually worse, at least in the beginning. because they didn't really want to drop the prices of everything. And in Joann's products, some of them are very pricey. Sometimes the quality, I don't know if it's there. I didn't buy everything from the store, but I find that you can find certain things cheaper at a different store. But the thing is, the issue was when we weren't liquidating, when it was just Joann, you could use coupons on top of the sales. Sometimes. It depended on the sale, if it was a doorbuster or not. But usually our customers were used to using those coupons on top of their, $100 purchase to bring it down at least a couple dollars, With the liquidation sales, none of that. We weren't doing any of that. And that really made some people mad. But every time I had to just tell the customers, we're not Joann anymore. And there's really nothing we could do. And Joann's customer base is a lot of sweet older ladies and crafters and very passionate people. But then we also attract the Karens. And then on top of that, liquidation customers. There's a thing with liquidation customers where they've never shopped at the store before. They don't know what the hell that they're doing at the store. They just come in because it's a sale. You don't need a thing just because it's on sale, just because you can get a good deal. Unless you were originally planning on buying it before, it's just a nice advantage to have a sale on something you were going to buy anyways. These liquidation customers, the Joann Reddit actually called it vultures, which I thought was funny. I had never worked a liquidation before, so it was quite interesting to work it. I wasn't mentally prepared, but holy hell, it put me through hell and back. It put all of my coworkers through that. You thought retail was bad. Try working in a liquidation. But it's also kind of fun. My favorite thing was telling people that there wasn't anything in the back. Or my favorite thing was also telling them, I don't know when the sales are going down. And then another thing was telling them, I don't know where anything is, because we kept moving stuff around the store to consolidate as we got less and less. So that was fun, but it was also mentally exhausting, especially for the part where people kept asking the same exact question. I swear these people are a mob. They don't have any original thought. I got so much of the same freaking questions. All right, I would like to list out some of these phrases that I got on a daily basis since working this liquidation. But where are we gonna get fabric now? When are you closing? Did they get you guys another job? Where are you gonna work now? What's going to replace this building? And when will the discounts go down? Those were just some of my least favorite phrases. And it was so, we would get these questions multiple times a day. It was annoying. But honestly, working a liquidation went by really fast, especially toward the end. We started counting down the days, and it went by really fast. Each week, something new was happening. It was either the discounts would go further down, or one week we did a 1 yard minimum cut, and then another week we changed it to a 2 yard minimum cut, and oh my goodness, so many people complained about that, but there was nothing we could do. It is what it is. And then I didn't really work every day. I was just part-time. So one day the policy would be completely different, and then the next day something new would come up. So it was a constant whirlwind of what the heck is going on, what can I do to help? And it was kind of fun, because my favorite thing about Joann is I was able to kind of walk around and do multiple jobs at once. Sometimes I could do a little bit of stocking, sometimes I can cashier, sometimes I can use the cut bar. And it was fun because I need that constant switch up to not get bored, I guess. it's an ADHD thing. And that was cool about working in liquidation because we had to do a lot of tiny little things like consolidating, like moving stuff up to the front, moving, fixtures and stuff to the front, and like doing a bunch of price tags. Like that was kind of fun to me. But yeah, everything was constantly changing and I didn't even feel like I knew anything about this store anymore. Once I got over my anger, like maybe in the first week, I just kind of didn't care.
Who cares if we have a bajillion of this one ribbon in this cardboard box? People will still buy it. It doesn't matter anymore.
It was more about just clearing out the store and, having a fun time with it. And I did enjoy it. Yet we got some interesting people. It really brings out the worst in some customers. We did have a lot of people opening packages and like throwing fabric everywhere, just leaving the store in more of a mess than they already did before. Like one lady got mad at my manager because we didn't have mattress sticking. She told us this is why Joann is going out of business. But the thing is, our store never sold mattress sticking. We had a lot of people say, oh, this is why Joann was going out of business while we were liquidating, which we weren't even Joann anymore. It was so stupid. And I was checking reviews the other night, and I find that this was funny. This was done during the liquidation. As a man who dutifully brought his dear wife, I can see why they're going out of business. And this was while the store was like empty. And another thing, we have our bathrooms closed up. I'll probably insert a picture. It literally we have like freaking caution tape and a bathroom closed sign. And we have had so many people just wander back there, use the bathroom. And my manager got so mad at this one lady. I won't go into full detail, but she would have to scold many customers, rightfully so, for going in a completely blocked off area. There was a lot of people wandering in places that they weren't supposed to, and we had to like guide them with our yelling to tell them, no, you're not supposed to be back there. And I was more aggressive with customers, mainly because they were wandering where they weren't supposed to. And I was originally very shy when I first started. So the fact that I got more like outgoing toward the end was an advantage of working here. One lady got so fed up because our bathrooms were closed that she called the cops on us just because our bathrooms were closed. I won't go into full detail, but it was a little wild because I didn't even know about this situation, and then I go into work and I just see an officer and I'm just like, okay. It was weird. We've had to call the cops on customers before, but not the other way around. So let me backtrack a bit and talk about like our shipments and stuff. Each store was categorized by different fleets or whatever. So basically after the closing announcement in February, we stopped getting shipments. And like everything was empty. But for some reason, they told us that we were going to close at the end of May. And that was wild to me because we barely had anything. Like, how are we supposed to sell when we barely have stock in some areas? But then toward the end of April, we got stock from another store. So we got basically their leftovers, which was a good chunk. And then right after that, at the end of April, we got another like whooping 700 something box shipment, like 4 weeks before we were set to close. That truck was like full head to toe in stuff. We got fabric, we got freaking beads, we got buttons, we got needles. We had so much thread. We haven't had thread in months, and they just freaking send thread right before we're about to close. People have been needing these things for months, and we finally get it because of course we get it when we're closing. This stuff was like sitting in a warehouse. So good job, Joann. I don't blame the warehouse workers for not like sending these things out. It's the people, it's always the higher ups. But it was the end of April and we were basically like full of fabric and full of other things. I didn't know how we're supposed to sell everything, but we actually managed to sell most things except for like some thread and like needles and some small things. But we were drowning in stock. It took me and my coworkers like multiple days to unpack all of the candles. And oh my god, those candles gave me a headache because we were just opening boxes of all the candles and just the smell, the constant smell of a bunch of candles. It was a lot. But toward the end, each day kind of got more hectic because people knew we were closing. They were expecting a good sale. Honestly, though, the second week before we were about to close was probably the busiest. Not the last week, but the week before. We still had fabric then, so like, and mind you, most fabric was only like 70% off, but people were still buying like giant freaking piles of fabric. Like, it took me and my coworkers so much to count like some of these people's stacks because they were stocking up. Understandably so, I get it. Like at the cut counter, we had giant stacks of fabric, and that took a while to measure some of them. And then also, you have at the cash register, so many people were buying like the tiny little things. Oh my god, the embroidery floss. So much embroidery floss. One customer had like 1,000 and something pieces of embroidery floss. It was like a lot of just, the lines were long and people were just getting a stack of things. And then like toward the end, like in the last 2 weeks, we stopped cutting fabric completely and just sold the entire bolt by like counting the folds, which if you don't know, every 2 folds on a bolt is a yard. So that made everything like go by like way smoother. And I was honestly kind of scared for the last weekend because it was Memorial Day weekend. So I kind of expected it to be crazy, but it honestly wasn't that bad because we didn't have any more fabric left. Literally on like Memorial Day, we had like 4 bolts of fabric. It was like barely any fabric left. So it wasn't that busy. It was kind of depressing, like after working weeks of endless chaos. The last week was like a breeze. It was mostly like lots of people buying thread and like a bunch of floral and a lot of tiny things. So it wasn't that bad to check out. It was just very depressing. And like the last week, everything was kind of like hitting. Because with all the constant busyness that we had prior, I wasn't able to like process, oh my god, this is the end. But finally in those last couple of days, I started realizing like, oh my god, I'm not going to see these people every day that I will miss. I'm trying not to get all emotional, but I guess this is the emotional part of the video. Like on Memorial Day, it was more people buying fixtures and stuff because we had more fixtures than we had of like regular stuff. But we had like so many people scheduled on the last couple of days because, you know, we didn't know how busy it was gonna be, but it honestly was not that bad. It was really sad seeing like the empty store and just how slow we were. It was like everything was setting in, like, this is it. Joann's is over, you know. This place that, you know, introduced so many people to sewing. Like, it literally, I was able to get into cosplay because of this stupid little store. I know at the end of the day it is a corporation, but like I'm like kind of emotionally attached because I worked for them and like all of the memories that I associate with them. But then again, they were a little scummy. Yeah, it was just really weird because we were expecting it to be so busy and it was just, you know, we just had fun. Me and my coworkers, we took the little like mobile cart around. He took the little like mobile rolling cart, electric cart, whatever you call it, and he was just riding around the empty store. It was funny, and you know, I felt like we could do whatever we wanted. I kind of wish like I brought my Heelys and just started like rolling around the store. But it was so weird, like seeing this place that had been like, we had a giant store. Seeing this place that was full of so much stuff and like it inspired people. Seeing it so empty was really like weird. The main part that I will miss, like I've said before, is my team that I worked with. Because while I have anxiety and I thought that some of these people didn't like me, turns out most of them seemed to like me. You know, I really enjoyed working with them, and it just kind of sucks, you know? I've met some really interesting people through this job. Also met some really cool customers, like, and I've been inspired by like different customers to work on stuff. You know, I didn't think recording this video would make me cry, but like I'm actually kind of tearing up. I haven't really cried about this whole situation until now, I guess, because I guess I'm finally processing my emotions. Like, I literally had this one customer, like one day while I was sewing my friend's wedding dress, she literally like, she was such a sweet, kind woman, and like she taught me like a really useful sewing trick for when you get a knot in your hand sewing, like how she cuts it and like ties it in the middle to save like the stitch. You know, it's like small little customer interactions that I'll miss about that store. Because okay, retail customers, they're weird, but like our little like our Joann's was like a community. So at least we did have repeating customers that got on my nerves, but then we also had some amazing customers who came here like basically every day. Costuming is a big part of where the city or near the city that I live. So we had some really, it was an important place to the community. So like losing a part of this community, it will leave a hole. So I mean, the fact that Michael's bought you know, Joann's, what is it, some of their labels and some of their products, you know, I mean, that gives me a little hope, you know. I think that that's a good business move on Michael's, but also Michael's is also owned by private equity, and you know what happens to private equity. But, you know, that gives me a little hope. But, you know, it's just so sad to watch a place that I found a little bit of joy in just crumble away. And rest in peace, Joann's. You will be missed, Queen. Thank you for anyone who stuck by and watched this entire video now. I appreciate you. But now I get to be a YouTuber now that I lost my job. Yay! In all seriousness though, please like and share the video, leave a comment, you know, all that fun stuff. And also please support my other job at Grey Duck Arts. We do fun little paint by number kits of your pets. Also, feel free to commission me if you want, like, I do art and stuff. I can do many art. That's my pitch. I would love a livable income because now my income is less than it was. So, thanks for watching. Have a good day.